in the middle, even Robbie Fabry, who played a little bit last year, some flexibility to move those players into the middle or back to the wing. Again, right shots are a bit of a concern for us. And our 3 right shot forwards are unrestricted free agents, and we have definite interest in all 3 of them. And, between now and Tuesday, we'll, decide, do we want to try and get something done, or can we get something done with any of those guys, or do we go beyond the 28th and see what else is out there?
You're absolutely welcome to just email your notes. But
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's nothing really enlightening, actually. It's just our depth chart, really, and you can figure it out as quickly as I can.
Thanks.
Yep.
Next up, Ted Colvin, Detroit News.
Hey, Steve, given how crazy this whole year was, it seemed like some of these kids, maybe you guys knew just a little bit more, a little extra with Kris maybe coaching them or whatnot. Does that kind of help you choose or go after a player than maybe a guy you're not as familiar with?
Well, you like to know have as much information on all the kids that you can to make the best decision possible. It doesn't really come down to so much Kris knows this guy or therefore I'm drafting him. We're always looking at who's the best player at that spot, what's the right pick. But it is very helpful when, some of these kids, Kris growing up as a coach, or with his own son growing up and being in the hockey world, he's gotten to know them very well. So that's very helpful, but really not a determining factor for any of them, but just, again, more information and, know the type of people we're trying to bring in, really solid kids, high character kids. So it is somewhat helpful, but it's not really a deciding factor for us. The fact that we know them, we try to get to know them all.
Right. The Plandowski kids, I don't know, could be another sleeper. I mean, you look at some of those mock drafts, people had them going much further than where you guys got them. What do you know about him? Could be a kid who could be a sleeper. Who knows?
Yeah, well, his father and I worked together in Tampa.
Yeah.
He was one of our head amateur scouts. I met Oscar when he was a little boy. I haven't seen him play. I've seen video of him play, but in discussing or leading up to the pick, he's obviously a right shot, very good skater, good size, very good skater, good shot. So our guys like the size, the skating ability, and he's a right shot D. And we thought, we did pick a couple of lefts, and you look at our depth chart, we've got a lot of left shot D that we're very, very high on. And we got a few righties that we obviously like. So we thought it was at that spot, he was there, and we were debating a couple of different players. And we like the fact that he's got good size, he can skate, and he's a right shot.
Sounds good. Appreciate this, Steve. Thanks.
Yep.
Next up, Justin Rose, WXYZ.
Hey, Steve, it looks like you took a couple of monsters on the blue line. I mean, when you have a guy on the board with 6'6", 6'5" size, I mean, how much, what do you weigh between maybe a smaller, faster guy there? I'm just curious the thought process.
Well, ultimately, we're going to take the best player available. All things being equal, and the one guy's bigger, we'll take the bigger guy. All things being equal, one guy's faster, well, we'll take the faster guy. So, it's not so much worrying about big versus small or whatnot. We just we like, you met the 2 defensemen in particular that we take in Edvinsson and Bouillon. Both big guys. We like them a lot. Today, obviously, we trade up to get Shy, excuse me. We had them pretty high, probably higher than most people. And we just felt like, let's get them. We've been in that spot before where we're waiting, and then they go right before you, and not knowing what other teams are doing. We thought the cost to move up to make sure we had them was reasonable. In that, as you saw later on, we made a pick to move back to reacquire that pick. So I do like these big D men, but they have to be mobile. They have to have some skill. We don't draft them just because they're big.
And then secondly, you've been through enough of these drafts. What do you think, it's more gut, or is it the analytical process of it when you're actually making the selection? How do you vary between the two?
Well, we put our list together of, not so much gut, but the eye test. You scout there, you're watching them. That's the number one thing. You go and you watch him. Do you like the player? Do you like the way he plays? Do you like the attributes that he has? Do you think he's going to be an NHLer? But we also look at it analytically, and analytics. God, the data that goes into that when we talk about analytics, it's everything from height and weight, what country they're from, points they put up versus other players. And there's a lot that goes into it. And you take all the information and put your list together and decide. But ultimately, again, we put our list together and you try to follow your list. And, to be honest, today, for example, like, we had about 4 or 5 more left shot D that we really liked. And it's like, what, we got to go away from these left shot D where we're not going to have any room anywhere for all these kids to play. So we started to had to look at other things. So it's not really gut. It's more kind of, I guess, common sense or just trying to spread things out a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next up, Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Steve, you talked about some of the centers that you picked. It seems like I haven't seen all of them play, but two-way guys, high compete. I think a few of them have been captains at various points, tournaments, teams. Is that a profile you were specifically kind of targeting?
Well, we were looking definitely to add centers for sure. We're trying to all the kids we're looking for, we're trying to have good character. That's important. We want them to be driven. We want good people in the organization. So the fact that they were captains is maybe coincidental. We go with all 3 of them, actually, similar type players, two-way guys. It's just kind of how our list unfolded this year, and that we're constantly looking at a bunch of left D that we liked when our pick was coming up. And then we got into the middle rounds and it was some left D and centerman. And, we were comfortable taking these centers. It was a need for us. And, at that point you're kind of, whether you're picking the 50th or 49th player on your list, particularly when we got a lot of left shot D and we've taken too high, then we could kind of defer to other spots. And some of the wingers that we really liked, they kind of got picked off in between our picks. So, and we knew that was going to happen, where you just kind of, when you see things unfolding, you see it set up and it's like, this guy isn't going to be there when we're picking here or there. So that's just the way it goes. And we had the centerman, and our choices really were centers and D kind of for some of those middle picks. And we thought it was right. We like these centers to choose them, I guess.
You talked about some of the kind of skill wingers you already have in the system. Raymond and Berggren, do you expect both of them to be at camp this year and then either Detroit or GR? It's depending on how they do.
Yeah, I do. I had nothing set in stone. We're planning on for them to be in camp, counting on them to be there, and ultimately where they play, we'll figure it out. Jonathan Berggren, whether he's in, I'm not penciling him into Detroit or Grand Rapids. We'll let it play itself out. And with Lucas as well, we'll bring him here. We'll see how he does in the rookie tournament and in training camp and preseason. And then if he's ready to play for the Red Wings, he will. And if not, we'll decide on Grand Rapids or I'm open to anything. We'll do ultimately what's right for all of these kids. But the plan definitely would be for Jonathan to be here in North America, whether it's in Detroit or in GR.
And then to follow up on free agency, do you have is there a number you have in mind for forwards that you'd be interested? How much room do you have, I guess, to add up front?
How much room for bodies, you mean?
Yeah, is it 2 guys, 3 guys, or I'm sure it depends.
Well, it depends. I guess it depends on what we do with our own players, So we certainly have spots unsigned. Really, if we were to carry 13 forwards, I have not including our own free agents, we've got to fill 3 spots on our up front, and that includes our own guys. And you know what? The other option is we don't fill those spots, and we see how Jonathan Berggren does. We see how Lucas Raymond does, and any of the other guys for that matter. So, and then on the back end, again, we're looking to potentially add 2D, and whether that's our players that finish the season with us or going to the market. remains to be seen.
Last thing, are you guys going to be able to have a development camp this year, or is that out of the question?
Yeah, right now we're not planning on doing a development camp. The timing of it is really it's at an odd spot, and in particular with us, we weren't sure on the border from Canada to the U.S. A lot of the European kids won't be available for it because they're starting, to go into August for it. They're back with their teams, and we didn't think it made sense to bring them all the way here for 4 or 5 days when they're back skating with their team. And then for our college kids, a lot of them were going back to school, getting ready, whether it's summer classes or in training with their team. So there was too much uncertainty and not knowing with our draft. So we still kick around the idea of maybe doing something, smaller and abbreviated, but as of now, we don't have a plan to have a formal one, and we're look to do it next year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up, Ansar Khan, M Live.
Yeah, hi, Steve. As far as just touching a little bit on what Max just talked about, just a prospects tournament, is that a possibility for this fall?
Yeah. Yes, we will be. We will be planning right now to go ahead and making the plans fully to go ahead with a prospect tournament. I'm just kind of standing up here looking at Todd Beam. I'm not sure when that official announcement will come, but our plan, we're in the planning stages. We're expecting to have the development camp at the normal time prior to the start of training camp.
And also, just in general, all the picks that you accumulated this year, last couple of years. I mean, it gave you the flexibility to make some moves, to trade up and to make a couple of trades. Just how nice was it just having that flexibility with those extra picks?
Well, honestly, I hate giving up draft picks. I feel every draft pick, regardless of a first round or a seventh round, is hope. It's hope for Henrik Zetterberg or Pavel Datsyuk or Sergei Fedorov or Nicholas Lidstrom or you name it, regardless of the pick. So I hate giving up picks. I love accumulating them and keeping them and using them. And but this year, we were just in a situation, again, we felt it was important. We've had a lot of picks in the past. We still ended up with 8 selections this year, and we did a lot of things with the picks that we had. So it does give you options. But just going back to what we did last week to solidify our goaltending in Detroit for a late third and acquiring Nick Leddy for the late second, I feel strongly that it's important that we try to be competitive, that we bring in some players to help Hronek, to help Seider, to help Dylan, as I'd said the other day. So those cost us picks. We could live with that. And then in this year's draft, he asked me before, do we plan to trade up or back? You have to be prepared for it, but not necessarily plan for it. And when Edvinsson was sitting there at 6, we've obviously felt very highly about Sebastian Kosa and thought there's no chance he's going to be there at when we're picking at 23, that the only way we're going to get him is we're going to have to move up. And that was the price to move up. So again, having the picks allowed us to do that. But again, I don't necessarily like to do it, but you have to, be prepared to make these decisions. And we felt good about it. And, today we sit here and we're glad that we have Nick Leddy on the roster. We're glad that we have Alec Nedeljkovic on the roster. We're very happy to have Kosa in the fold and Buyam in the. I'm sorry, I have trouble. I want to call him Bayam, but it's Buyam. Happy to have those guys here right now, and the cost of that is, we're comfortable paying it or prepared to pay it.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Next up, Bob Duff, Detroit Hockey Now.
Steve, Kris talked a bit about this last night, about some of the challenges with guys who didn't play this year. And you obviously picked Zito with your last choice, who was a guy that didn't play any organized hockey this year. What goes into that process? I mean, it's so unusual to be drafting a guy that didn't play.
Yeah, it was interesting because we're sitting there with our 6th round pick, or even in 5th and 6th. And now we're looking at players that hadn't played, and so we're really deferring to our area scouts at that point in the draft as to who they really like and what our needs are. And I guess you could say it's a bit of a guess, but fortunately we watch, you start watching these kids usually the year before their draft, and they like the qualities that he had, his competitiveness, his size a little bit different than a lot of than the majority of prospects we've drafted. So again, it's I don't want to call it a guess, but you're dealing off a year before, and you're hoping that, hey, maybe we're getting a steal out of this, and every team but certainly players have been drafted who've been out for a whole year with injury and you haven't seen them play. They get drafted. Just there was a lot more of those guys this year for obvious reasons. So, we hold keep our fingers crossed, hold our breath, and hopefully we get lucky. But the characteristics that he showed us, showed our scouts the previous years, and hopefully they carry forward. And these kids, I'm pretty sure none of them were sitting around playing video games all day. They're skating it to the best they could. They're training the best they could, and the setback of missing a year of hockey, ultimately, if they're good enough, they will overcome that.
Thanks.
Next up, Mike Stone, 97 won the ticket.
Yeah, Stevie, two things. Number one, was there anyone today who you guys picked that you were saying, oh my God, he's still there, in a positive way, that surprised you?
Let me go back to it. Not really. Everybody was kind of in the range we expected them to be in. So no, it wasn't a case of that. We, to trade up for Buyam, we knew he was going to be somewhere in that range, and we're sitting there. And again, we thought very highly of him and felt, we're a little bit worried about the two teams in front of us. We don't know what they're going to do, and just wanted to make sure we got him. So maybe a little surprised that Oscar Plandowski was there that hot or at that pick, but it was kind of somewhere in that range we felt he was in. So no, not really shocked about any of them. We're there was a few kids that we were hoping might slip down a little bit and to get in the mix, and a lot of them kind of were like, I don't think they'll fall, and ultimately they didn't.
On your pick of Savage, when you're picking a player whose father played in the league, do you talk to his father? Is that Drapes' job? And how much of an asset is that somebody who has at least the bloodlines and knows what to go through? Yeah,
well, Drapes and the amateur scouts would, really with all the kids, they, whether they know the family or not, interview everyone, talk to them, get a feel for them. So, with Red playing out in Plymouth, I know, we saw Brian at the games. I saw Drapes talking to Brian a lot at the games, and I think a lot of it they're just chatting. But it's very helpful that the player, the family, a little bit of the background more, and you get a better feel for the type of character you're bringing into your organization.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep, you're welcome, Stoney.
Our last question, Art Regner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Steve. Looking at this draft class, out of the 8 players, 2 left-handed shooting defensemen, 3 centers, although 2 of them are listed as left wings as well, 1 right wing, 1 right-handed shooting defenseman, 1 goaltender. I'm kind of curious, besides talent, is there characteristics that all 8 of these players possess? Like, if you could describe this draft class as a whole in 2 or 3 sentences, what would you say?
I guess, Art, I don't know that I would, like, these players are also very different. We again, you hear me repeat myself here a little bit, but we're trying to find good kids, good, solid character kids that have drive and motivation that we like to think all of these kids have from doing the background work, from watching them play. But Edvinsson is different than Buyam. Kosa is a goalie. He's different than all of them. Ultimately, we think they're all competitive kids. We think they're all motivated and driven, and time will tell. But they're different type of players. I think with Savage, Dower Nielsen, as centermen, a little bit different players than Pasquale Zito, but all can play center. Mazer's, a very, very competitive, good skating right winger. So we've got a little bit of balance in that with goal. We address kind of every position. But I guess kind of what would be in common, and we're trying to do that every year, is draft kids that are good, solid kids that have different, enough ability in some form or another that we think have a chance to play in the league and are really driven and motivated. And you know what, time will tell if they are driven and motivated. We think they are, but time will tell on all of that.
When you look at this draft, I know you said a couple of days ago that you kind of like the virtual draft because you don't have 15,000 people screaming at you on the first round when you're all in an arena. Did this one seem more like a real draft? Do you think everyone is kind of used to the virtual thing? Because it seemed to be a lot smoother. I mean, last year at this time, I think the third round was just ending, and now the whole draft is pretty much over.
Well, yeah, I definitely liked it I think it's great, other than today. Last year seemed long. I don't know what time we finished last year, but it's probably just wrapped up. It's about 6:00. What did we start at 11? It's 7 hours, live for what I'm not really sure why, but usually we start at 10 and we're out of there by 2 or 3 o'clock at the latest. So for whatever reason, day 2 seems to really drag on, and that's the only downside to it. But I do like the virtual draft. What I don't really like is the fact that I would like a virtual draft with our entire scouting staff in our room with us. It's a little bit difficult, with the guys in Europe and some of the guys in Canada all over the place. They're on a call with us on the computers, on their laptops. I'd prefer to have them all in the room. That's the only part that I would like to add to it. But again, it's just a little less stress, a little less distraction when you can do it from your own office, your own war room, so to speak.
Steve, I know that the 28th is the period for unrestricted free agents, and I know you're busy trying to sign maybe some of your UFAs before the 28th. Yet, by my count, you have 6 prospects playing in the summer showcase. Will you be spending any time in Plymouth this week?
I hope to. Yeah, that's the plan. I know Sean Horkoff, Pat Verbeek left early this afternoon to go over and watch this afternoon. Guys will be there tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll get over there tomorrow, but yeah, looking forward to getting over and seeing some of the kids. So it's a great event, actually, even when we didn't have our prospects here, and it's nice that it's local, that we get, you can just drive over and watch it. So it's what do we got? 5 or you said 6 kids there, I think.
Yeah, 6. Yep.
Yeah. So, I'll definitely try to get over there at some point, but it looks like we'll be spending some time on the phone this week, not only with our unrestricted free agents, but we got to get to work on our restricted guys as well.
My final question, I promise this is the final one, is that when you were looking at goaltenders between Wallstedt and Kosa, that because Kosa played on a smaller ice surface and had to handle the puck more, that might have put him a little bit above Wallstedt as far as maybe in some teams' books, including the Red Wings, I guess. That's something I never really even thought about, to be honest with you. I mean, is that true? I mean, is that, I know
Art, I never thought about it either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, okay.
The fact that they're on the big ice or the small ice, they're both really good puck handlers. They're both really good prospects. We have our own, you can only pick one. We have our, we made a decision. We had, we did our own work, our own scouting. Like I said, you're making these picks, and there's 5 kids you want in the first round. There's 5 kids you want with your second round pick, and you're sitting there and you can just paralyze yourself because you only get to pick one of them, and they're both very good young goaltenders. And we have our own reasons that we justified why we liked Sebastian Kosa, or why we opted for Sebastian over Wallstedt. But I think they both have bright futures in the NHL.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Those are all the questions we have for Steve. We'll be back shortly with Kris Draper. With Red Wings Director of Amateur Scouting, Kris Draper. If you have a question for Kris, please let us know in the chat. We'll start off with Helene St. James, Detroit Free Press.
Kris, I know you have connections with some of the players. I think Savage said he played against you or played against your team when you were coaching Little Caesars, and Masur played for you. When you have that kind of in with players, how does that affect in interviews and just the whole preparation process?
Obviously, well, with Carter, I can start with Carter. I met the Meijer family when, he was 10 years old. He's an 02. He grew up playing, Little Caesars all the way through from basically from 10 years old till his U16 year. It's been a lot of fun, and obviously, obviously proud to watch Carter develop into the player he was. Last year he went into, his first year in Tri-City, and it's a big jump. He was, at the time, he was maybe, 5'9.5", 5'10". He's growing, 2 to 3 inches. He's put on about 20 pounds. He knows he needs to still get, bigger and stronger. But, the interesting thing for me was going back out and watching Tri-City and just seeing the improvement, in Carter from his underage year to this year, or last year to this year. But more importantly, our area scouts, the reports that they were putting in, about Carter. It's easy for me to go in there and watch him and I know him. So, but when all of a sudden, our scouts are going in, and we're talking, and they're talking about the improvement of Carter Meijer, that's something that, was obviously it was great to hear and great to see. And then, from there we put the list together, and, obviously we put Carter in a spot where he deserved it. And then as we're going through our list, it's, as we're talking with, the scouts, it was a pick that we all wanted to make. And, with Red Savage, obviously I played against his dad, tremendous family. They grew up, Red grew up in NHL dressing rooms and in hockey environment. And, Red knows what being a pro is. He has a lot of insight of going into rinks and seeing the sacrifices that his dad made throughout his career. And, I believe that's exactly how Red is wired as well. So it was something, when you start looking at Carter Meijer and Red Savage, obviously I've seen, these two players, especially since, they were 9-10 years old and turn into real good NHL prospects. And, they know they have a long way to go. But they also, they also have, the passion for the game and the love for the game. And, when you talk about character, both Carter and Red have that. Carter was named captain of Tri-City, which is something, for an 18-year-old prospect is obviously a great accomplishment. And, for Red going into the U18 World Championships, he was named captain of Team USA, which I know is a huge thrill for himself. So there's a reason, why they were named that. It's the way they carry themselves. It's the way they lead by example, what they do on the ice and off the ice. And
Shai, what made him worth trading up for?
Shai was, he's 6'3", he's 210 pounds right now. We really love, he's going out to Denver. We feel he's in a great spot to continue to develop. We have Antti Tuomisto out there. Carter Meijer's going in there as well. We feel that, they do a real good job out there. And for us, I probably watched Shai early in November at Shattuck. And honestly, I didn't even, I wasn't even sure who it was. I was going in to watch a couple other prospects, and I was like, I was with Mark Mullen. I was asking Mullen, who's this defenseman? And just the size and the hockey sense really stood out, for me. And obviously it was such a, strange year for so many prospects. Shattuck ended up being shut down, and then he went into Sioux City. And, all of a sudden he started playing, he was basically in third pair playing 5-on-5. And as soon as he kind of, decided to spend the rest of the year in the USHL, he started taking on more responsibility. He was able to play on the power play, able to play on the PK. He was playing in all situations. And for us, he just kept getting better. Every time we go out there, whether, it was every other week or whenever we were seeing him, he just continued to get better. So I would say that was something that was intriguing. And we're sitting there and we're looking at, our draft board. And that was one of the names that kind of popped out for us. And we felt, at the time, you just never know. You never know who's going to like another prospect. And we're sitting there and Stevie, with, having conversation, we just decided that, it was worth it to make sure that we got the player. Cause, sometimes a couple names could go off the board and then all of a sudden you lose out on them. So we were able to do that. And we feel that, we've added, another defense prospect, 6'3", good skater, smart hockey player, and really, like the improvement that we've seen. And we feel that as an organization that he's going to continue to do that. So he was, very intriguing prospect for us today.
Last one for me, just real quick with Nilsson. Could he be a sleeper? He seems very skilled and very, very confident. Darwin Nilsson.
It's that was a name Hawken was pounding the table for. It's, when you look at where we're at, in the draft, it's another captain of a national team. Obviously he wore the C in Texas for the U18s. And, when that was, that kind of how I talked about Red Savage and Carter Mazer, that's how Hawken Anderson and TC describe Liam. And, I think that, that was something that was intriguing for us. And, he's a player that, we interview, probably, I don't know, over 100 prospects, and our area guys, and, they always have conversations throughout the year with them. And, as we're interviewing a lot of Swedish prospects, we always talk to the prospects, on your team and at the U18s, who would you want to take to the NHL to be a teammate? And the majority of the players on that team said, Liam Dohr-Nielsen. And that's something that just kind of stuck out with us. You're talking about another player that's, he has good hockey sense, a lot of character, a lot of compete, and it just seems like another player, that really loves the game. So that, with that, and obviously Hawken, was a big fan of his, and I've spent the last couple of years watching him. It just made sense when it was our turn to make our pick.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Ted Colfin, Detroit News.
Hey, Drapes, how important is, like you said, you kind of alluded to it. A lot of these kids are kind of character kids, accountable. Is that a characteristic, hey, you guys are definitely looking for?
For sure. I think anytime you have an opportunity to add a prospect that has been a captain, especially, we're talking about 17, 18-year-old, prospects and players, and they're being, for Carter being selected, he's playing with, 19 and 20-year-olds, and, his team and his organization, chose him as a captain. And, probably the big reason why is, he just goes out and leads by example. He's going to lay it on the line. He's going to block shots, whatever it takes, at those kind of moments, on the PK, on the power play, just a very serviceable, player, that really goes out and like I said, leads by example. So, character is something, when you think about Detroit Red Wings, it's something that, is important to us. Obviously it's important to Steve, and, we feel that we've, drafted, really good prospects, good character individuals. And I think, the names that we've touched on, a lot of these guys they're just going to do whatever they can to find ways to play. They know they have a lot of work to do. We've talked to them all already. I know Dan Cleary and Sean Horkoff and Nicholas Cronwell have reached out to all the prospects that we've drafted over the last couple of days. And, the thing that they come back with is it's a huge honor to be selected by the Detroit Red Wing organization. And that's something that means a lot to obviously all of us that have been a part of this organization for so long.
And last one, how difficult was it to go through this year in terms of scouting? Was it difficult to get a handle on a lot of these kids?
Honestly, for me, Ted, I could only stay in the US. So that's really where I was going. I was going around to the USHL. I was able to see some college hockey, some rinks I could get into, some rinks I couldn't get into. Obviously was able to see a little bit of Minnesota high school, but that was really all I can do. And then up until, April, until the U18 World Championships, it was a lot of video. But the good thing, obviously, for, every organization was, that we were, that they were able to pull off the U18 World Championships in Texas, because we've been watching a lot of these prospects throughout the year on video. We've seen a lot of them in their underage year, but from watching them 2 years ago to watching them on video, and then getting those 2 weeks of watching, having some live views was something real important for us. So I think that helped us out quite a bit. The development program played pretty well a full season, so we were able to watch them play quite a bit. But it was definitely challenging. But as we kind of went through the draft and we're talking, about names, the area scouts, stepped up, and that's how, Oscar Plandowski became a Detroit Red Wing pick, talking to our Quebec scouts, Ross Yates and Corey Crocker and Pasquale Zito out of Windsor. Just the relationships that Kelly Harper has with him, talking to his trainer, talking to the people around him, talking to the Windsor Spitfires, and just trying to get as much background information as possible. That's what we want to do. And at the time, that's when we made those picks. So, it was definitely challenging. It seems like, for me, it looks like, I'll be getting back into, chasing the late 03s and the 04s. A week from now, I'm going to head over to Europe for the Gretzky Hlinka in Slovakia and in the Czech Republic. And away we go. We're off to the 2022 draft. So it's amazing how fast it goes. But, I thought our staff did a great job, of watching live games when they could. And when they couldn't, they'd certainly do. We would certainly be on video, and we had a ton of calls all throughout the year, and I thought the communication was great.
Perfect. Thanks for this, Drapes.
Thank you.
Next up, Ansar Khan, M Live.
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Ansar.
Just with Zito not having played this year, how much does that kind of set back his development curve? And did that give you a pause at all, taking a player who hadn't played competitively, I think, since March of 2020?
Yep. You know what, Ansar, it did. Obviously there was a little hesitation, but, as we were, getting late in the draft and the characteristics of Pasquale and talking to, the general manager of the Windsor Spitfires, talking to the coach, talking to strength coaches that train him. Obviously we had some underage reports on Pasquale from last year. And then in the end it was, we talk, we have communication. Obviously we had, if scouts weren't here, we had a Microsoft Teams call going, and, it just felt that, for a 6th round pick, we wanted to step up and get him, and that's, was it hard? Yeah. I mean, obviously we haven't seen him, but, I know after, we made the selection and we talked to him, he was so excited about getting drafted, and he basically said, I'm going to do, everything I can to make it worthwhile of us obviously stepping up and picking him. And, that's obviously, pretty neat to hear. But, for us, it was about relationships that we trusted. He's, did he lose a year of hockey? Absolutely. But, we feel over the next couple of years, he's going to do everything he can on the ice and off the ice to make himself ready and turn himself, into the prospect that we want him to be.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Next up, Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Chris, one more on Zito. He says he looks up to Matthew Tkachuk. What do you see in his game?
Well, that was the type of player, on the interview that Kelly had with him. That's exactly what he talks about, and that's exactly how he wants to play. As he wants to be a hard player to play against. He wants to compete against the other players' top teams. He wants to make it tough on net front presence, and those are the kind of things that you like. So when you interview a player and all of a sudden they start talking about my favorite players are the Tkachuks, it kind of puts a little smile on your face that that's the way they want to play, and you let them know that that's not easy to do what they do every night. And, he just kind of smiled, and, I know through Kelly and the interviews that they had, and even when Kelly talked to him today, he just said, he goes, that's who I want to be. Now, we all know the Tkachuk brothers are unbelievable hockey players and, unbelievable pros in the National Hockey League. But when you have a 17, 18-year-old prospect that looks up to them and wants to play like them, puts a little smile on your face. And, he knows he has a lot of work to do, like I said, about losing a year of hockey. And it's, I couldn't even imagine at that age not being able to play. But, like we kind of talked about last night, the opportunity, to be in the gym and get those home cooked meals and, the opportunity to get bigger and stronger, prospects took advantage of that. And that's something that, Pat Pasquale did as well.
And then Steve mentioned you guys he thought you had Shai probably higher than maybe some others. Like, what do you guys see as his potential, William?
You know what? We think that we felt that we drafted, a top potential top 4 defenseman. We look, we feel he has, very good hockey sense. And, I would say, he has, he's 6'3", he's 210 pounds. He has an opportunity to frame, when all of a sudden he decides to turn pro, when he's ready to turn pro, he could easily be 225, 230 pounds. And, that's pretty intriguing for a defenseman. But I'd say, for us, when we kept going back to the rink, he just kept doing a lot of little things right. He has good poise with the puck. He's able to move the puck. He's just, when you're 6'3" and you're that strong, it just gives yourself that much of an advantage when you're defending. So I would say, we probably did have him higher than what the industry thought, but we felt, when you look around and you start seeing teams that, are successful and how they win and how they're built. Obviously they have, big D, that can defend and have hockey sense. And that's what we feel that we got.
And then last one from me, Red Savage. It sounds like you've coached against him going back a ways. What's your kind of scouting report on Red and his game?
You know what? Red was, watching him play, even at an early age, he just understood how to play the game. You could tell that he's been around the game, very responsible two-way player. I'd probably say, as a, 14, 15, 16-year-old player, he probably played, too responsible, but that's just in him. That's the way he's wired. That's the way he was brought up. That's how he understands that of how he's going to turn himself into a good pro. So, for me watching Red, he just knows how to play. He's in good spots for his D, very responsible. He's actually really good in the circle to take face-offs. Watching him in Texas, he had some big shot blocks on the penalty kill, kind of plays, a fearless type game. And you know what? He showed that, throughout this year when he got a little bit of an opportunity that, he could produce some offense. So he's going into Miami. I think the one thing that, we're certainly going to want him to work on is, he knows how to play without the puck. He's obviously very intelligent in his own end. He knows how to play in the defensive zone. The one thing that we're going to want him to work on is obviously his offensive side of the game, to score goals, challenge himself to put up numbers. It's going to be tough going into college hockey as an 18-year-old, but it's something that we're certainly going to want him to do and encourage him to do as well.
Thanks, Kris.
Thank you.
Next up, Bob Duff, Detroit Hockey Now.
Kris, you mentioned Savage, and obviously you've got a son in the prospect pipeline yourself. Given two players of equal ability, is that an intangible to have had a father who's been in the pros and kind of not only understands what it takes to get there and can relay it to their son, but their son gets to witness the sacrifice that their fathers make to get there and to keep the job? So is that kind of an intangible? When scouts talk about intangibles, is that a distinct advantage for a kid that to have kind of lived inside the bubble of this lifestyle?
You know what, Bob? I think it is. I mean, we saw, tonight, obviously, Shane Doan's son got drafted as well. And when you kind of, we always talk about our prospects about, understanding the sacrifices that you're going to have to make, understanding, we always talk to these prospects and ask them, about, who's the hardest working guy in the gym. They always say they are. Who's the hardest working guy in practice? They are, but, for us that had the opportunity, to live it for as long as we did, we understand, what it does take. And I know, that for Red, he would understand that the sacrifices that his dad had to make, throughout his career. Just, little things, not being home for birthdays, not being home for concerts, those little things when, most dads are going to be there. That's just the way of the life of a hockey player and being a hockey dad. But I think, the benefits, are tremendous, that you get to go into the rink and you get to watch, dad skate, you get to watch dad train, you get to be around, for my son, Keenan, getting to be around some of the greatest, Detroit Red Wings of all time, and just seeing what it takes. And, you want them to, take that on in their work ethic on the ice and off the ice. And, I think that, when you talk, to these players and these young prospects that have kind of grown up around the game, I think there is a maturity level to them and how they carry themselves. They meet, a lot of people. They meet superstars of the game, and they obviously have to carry themselves, the right way. And for me, I know that Red Savage does that. The conversations that I have, even, watching him when he was 14, 15 years old, you could tell that, that he was brought up in the game, and it was always Mr. Draper and what it might be, and, those kind of things. And you know what, you respect that. But I know, for players, that have sons that are in the game, the one thing that you want to give your son, is a passion and love for the game that we have, and I believe that, that's something that's, super important. And I would have to say, not speaking for them, but Brian Savage and Shane Doan probably did the exact same thing for their sons as well. And I'm sure that's probably the most that they're proud of is that they love the game and the passion that they have for the game, and to be able to hand that down to your sons is something that is pretty special. So I would say that, for, some of the prospects whose dads have been around the game and they see the game, and they probably understand, the sacrifices a little bit more, because, they were a part of our sacrifices as we continued to play in the National Hockey League and continued, to chase our dream year in and year out.
Okay, thanks.
Next up, Carly Johnston, Red Wings TV.
Hey, Draves, how you doing?
Good, Carly. How are you?
Good. Thank you. All right, I want to ask you about Falunda. I mean, they must be breeding some elite players. You guys really seem to like them. You picked quite a few prospects out of there. Is it just a coincidence, or is Falunda really making that great of hockey players?
I mean, they run an amazing program from, the youth hockey all the way up. And it's a program that, we, in an area that obviously we spend a lot of time in. Both Håkan Anderson and Thomas Carlson are so close to Gothenburg, and certainly Nicholas Cronwell as well, the relationships that he has with them. But it's just, it's just interesting of how our list goes. We certainly don't highlight a prospect from Frölunda. But as we're kind of sitting there and we're debating, these guys are, they're coached the right way. They're brought up the right way. They're taught how to play the game. And, they've had so much success, at the youth level as a program, and certainly at the pro level as well. So, to be honest, Carly, it's just, you kind of sit there and as a name's coming up and you're sitting there and it's like, well, here's another one. And where does he play? And he plays in Frölunda, and, he ends up, being selected by the Detroit Red Wings. So to be honest with you, it really is a coincidence. And, it's just kind of how, for myself over the last couple of years doing our list, it's just kind of how it's fallen.
Hey, it seems to be working, but we have a lot of prospects playing in the Junior Summer Showcase here in Plymouth. Are you looking forward to watching some of your picks and seeing some other prospects that you haven't been able to see play live?
I am. Yes. I know Pat Verbeek, Sean Horkoff, and Dan Cleary kind of left a little bit early to go over and watch some prospects. And obviously there's 2 games tomorrow. So, we will certainly be making our way over there to watch our prospects. We were actually trying to get a hold of a couple of them today, and they were on the ice practicing, so we weren't able to right away. But I know, that it's an honor to be selected for these showcases for your country, and obviously on a day like this to not only be wearing the jersey of your country, and then all of a sudden to be able to hear your name being drafted by the Detroit Red Wings is obviously something special. So for them, this just ends up being, a great week. It's something that they won't forget. Obviously very unique, because obviously usually except for the last couple of years, we're in a rink and we're meeting the prospects right away and meeting their families right away. But the last couple of years we weren't able to do it. But I can tell you right now, everyone who heard their name called today, they're going to remember exactly where they were when they got the news that they've been drafted by an NHL team.
For sure. Thanks so much, Drapes.
Thank you.
Our last question, Art Regner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Kris.
Art's last.
Well,
right.
because I have like 17 questions, so let's hopefully you have a cup of coffee. So it's been a long day. I guess my first question is this. Steve said something interesting a couple of days ago about metrics, and that maybe hockey is still in the phase of figuring out which metrics really mean something and which maybe are less. But this year, because you guys were landlocked to the countries you were in, did you rely on metrics more because the good old-fashioned in-person eye test, you really couldn't see a lot of these guys in person? So was metrics more prevalent, I guess, in this year's drafting than it has been in the past?
You know what, I would say probably over the last couple of years, for me, this is, like I said, the second year, I've been running the draft, and, there's a lot of times where you do throw up analytical comparisons of prospects. And, for me, it really just creates dialogue. I think it's something that, you for the most part, you go into the rink, it's the eye test. And then from there, you kind of try to follow it up with, are you going to do some more video, or are you going to start, doing some, analytic comparisons? And, that's something that's, been intriguing for me. And so I would say, overall, for the area scouts that were able to go into the rinks that they were able to go into, you go into the rink, you watch the game, but then we also had a lot of conversations. I would say, this year more than ever, because of the fact that I couldn't get into different countries and see, prospects in other countries and other areas, that, we had a lot of calls. So I would say that the communication was very good. I believe in the analytics side of the game and the analytics side of scouting. And to me, it's interesting when you go watch a prospect and then, analytically, you want to compare what you saw to what the data says as well.
I'm talking to Carter earlier today. He said that he was very more comfortable talking to you. Obviously, you're his coach, and you said you've known him since he was a little boy, than talking to other teams. But from your perspective, when you know someone that well, is it more difficult for you because you're asking, I don't know if they're hard questions, but questions where you're kind of deciding the kid's future, whether he might be drafted by the Red Wings or not?
You know what? Carter is, he's a intelligent young man. And it's been, like I said, it's been fun to watch him grow up. And, he, I believe at the time when we asked him, and we always write this down, how many interviews have you done? And, he was in the mid to high 20s in the interviews that he was a part of. And, for me, it's usually when you're at the combine, you get 20 to 25 minutes to spend with a prospect, but we're doing it on, these team calls. You can be on the phone for 30 minutes, 40, 45 minutes, whatever it might be. And, I think you're able to get a little bit more out of them. And certainly, for me, it was, I wanted to ask the right questions so the staff could see the side of Carter Meijer that I already knew. And I thought he handled, the interview, very well. Ryan Rozmierski tried to throw a little curveball at him and asked him who was the best coach that he ever had. And I'm here to say that Carter said the right name. So that was good for Carter. But, I'm lucky, for the 02 group and the 03 group, being able to coach my son all the way up and in that, in that birth year, I was able to see a lot of prospects kind of go out and play and watch them develop. So, for me, it's the interview process is an opportunity to really get to know the prospect. And there's some that, we're going to follow up with more than others. And, Carter's a guy that, we had a great interview with, but throughout the year, our area scouts had some good meetings with him as well. And it's something, that's important. I knew Carter, I knew his family, I knew where he grew up in Jackson and everything, about him. And, for me, I wanted our USA scouts, our area scouts in the US, I wanted them, to really like Carter Meijer and push for Carter Meijer. And then it makes sense for me as well. And that's exactly how it happened.
I know that this is your second year running the draft as the director of amateur scouting. I know you've been part of Red Wing drafts in the past, so you have been down on the floor in that environment. Are you looking forward to getting back, hopefully, to Montreal next year where everybody is together? Or do you think that this draft appeared to be, even though it was still virtual, almost normal? A lot of trades, a lot of talk, or is that because everybody was just used to this process now?
I'd probably say a little bit of both. I'd probably say that, for, most of the general managers, it probably felt right, for the situation that their players were in, that they needed to make some trades. I guess that would be, the answer for that of why, there were a lot of big trades and obviously a lot of big names that moved. And kind of as we went through the draft, there was, some teams trying to trade up. We did that. Teams trying to trade back as well and try to get more picks. And so I would say, yeah, but, I would say, for the draft, it's, you want to get back to normal. And it seems like everything's going to shape up for 2022, to be in Montreal and have an in-person draft again. And, that's something that, everybody looks forward to. And especially the prospects, being able, especially, iconic city like Montreal and going into the Bell Center with the history of that arena and just kind of looking up and seeing the jerseys and the banners. It's going to be, an epic moment for all these young prospects to go in there, and really, to hear their name being called and being drafted is a dream come true for all these kids going forward to next year. So I'm looking forward to it. I thought, last year, for my first draft and everything that was going on and Stevie Nutt, kind of, being there right beside me and looking up and having a talk on the screen. It was, this year was a lot easier, just having Stevie there, just the conversations that we were able to have, it's just very fortunate to be able to look over to my right and have conversations with Steve Yzerman and discuss the players that we want to take and why we want to take them. And for me, it's, obviously a great opportunity to be able to do that, but certainly looking forward to getting, on the road and seeing all these players live and traveling and kind of going about and doing my job back to, the normal fashion before, everything was shut down due to this pandemic.
Kris, my final question, and I promise this is the final question, hopefully. When I break down the 8 players here, 2 left-handed shooting defensemen, 3 centers, although 2 of them are listed as centers left wings, 1 right wing, 1 right-handed shooting defenseman, and 1 goaltender. I know that you best player available and all this, but is that a good mix? Is, going into the draft, if you would have known this is how it would have turned out, are you happy? Are you satisfied that, you've covered all your basic needs and got a lot of talented kids?
Yeah, I think, when you're sitting there and you're looking at the prospect pool and kind of seeing, positional of where, we were at and where we needed to go, I think we were able to do that. It was something, down the middle, we discussed that. And as you're sitting there and you're looking at prospects and, the importance of obviously defense, we talked about that last night. Trying to get some centers is something that, has been talked about over the last couple of years. And, we're able to do that this year. But, in the end, when you're sitting there and you're discussing, we want to announce the players and make the selections for, who we feel are going to be the best prospect that we can bring in, the best future Detroit Red Wing that we can bring in. And in the end, that's why we end up making the selections that we did. And, like you said, it just kind of worked out that way for us this year. So, as we always say, we'll see how it is. We feel good about today. We feel that we drafted in a lot of areas that we needed to draft in. You talk about, the character of the prospects that we brought in, the talent of the prospects that we brought in. And now it's, they all know that the work starts now. And that's something that, is really true. Once their name's selected and they're, part of an organization, away they go. And even for some prospects, that didn't get their name called, these guys can, still work and still believe in themselves and still chase their dream. And I just go back to, Barclay Goodrow from Tampa Bay, just wasn't drafted, just won back-to-back Stanley Cups and just went on to sign a 6-year deal with the New York Rangers. So for all the players that were drafted, it's obviously a great accomplishment. But for all the players that, weren't drafted tonight, that doesn't mean anything. It just means you keep working hard and you keep chasing that dream and you have the passion for the game. And like a player like Barclay Goodrow, you just never know.
Those are all the questions we have for today. Thanks everyone for joining us. Drapes, thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Great to hear from Steve Yzerman and Kris Draper there. A lot to talk about, a lot to unpack here. So I'm going to bring in Art Regner and Ken Cal. I like the last couple sentences that Draper gave us. Words to the wise, fellas, if you were not drafted today, there's so much left that you can do to be able to make it into the NHL. So Art, I know you got the last 28 questions of that presser there. Any takeaways from hearing from Yzerman and Draper?
Well, I think they had needs, as we've been talking about the last couple of days. They wanted left-handed shooting defensemen, and they wanted centers, and they were able to accomplish that. Eight players taken, which by I guess Red Wing standards of drafting lately is a small draft class. But I think they did fit the needs, and I think they're pretty pleased. I think they're pretty happy. They're pretty confident in their abilities, and obviously Steve's track record in drafting has been that he does find these diamonds in the rough. So I think everybody has to be encouraged. And I don't know, I mean, including like the trade for Nedeljkovic and Nick Leddy, I think he made like 6 or 7 trades during this draft, and that's I mean, we couldn't keep up. Every time we thought we might be able to catch our breath, Steve was doing another trade. But right. But I'm really happy. I'm really happy about it, and I think that it was. I don't know why I'm having so much problems with my.
Where are you going?
I'm trying to center myself, but. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I you know what? I'm pretty happy. I knew ending was a priority, and it really was, and they needed to address it. And getting Nedeljkovic, and then on top of that, Sebastian Cossa, I think suddenly a position of weakness is suddenly now being built up, and there's a bit of a foundation here. And to me, that's the most important thing, because goaltender is the most important position on the ice.
I couldn't agree more.
I guess a couple of takes.
Go ahead.
I guess a couple of takes, Carly and Art, that I came away from Steve Yzerman is one. Both Steve Yzerman and Kris Draper talked about how high they were on Shai Buyam, and it's amazing. It seems to me like they really want this guy, and they moved up to get him. And I think they learned from past experiences that a lot of times they were shut out when they didn't make the move. So I think they learned over the last couple of drafts that if they really like a guy, why risk the fact that he might not be there? So you move up. They did that with Sebastian Cossa. They did that with Buyam. So I think they're really high on him, and I can't wait to see him play. The way they were talking about him, big, strong, solid defenseman. I can't wait to watch him play. The other thing, and Art, I know you'll be happy about this, but Steve Yzerman was talking about training camp coming up, and it sounds to me, just reading between the lines, that he is really hoping, maybe crossing his fingers, that Raymond and Berggren will be able to make this team. I mean, they're really hoping. They're not going to rush it, but they're hoping that they have such a tremendous camp that it could fill a couple of spots up front for Detroit.
Well, right. I got the feeling, Kenny, and you've known Steve a long time, and I know, Carly, you're just getting to know him because he's been back a couple of years, but don't you think that, I don't know if it's he drew a line in the sand with himself or something, but said, it's about time for us not to be bottom feeders or cellar dwellers or whatever way you want to do it. It's time for us to start ascending up the ladder. And I think by the moves that he made and trading some picks and bringing in assets and trying to surround some of the young talent that he already has with guys that'll help them out and kind of grow, I guess what I'm trying to say is a semblance of a team. I think that, and that's what we're seeing. And I couldn't agree with Ken more. I think that if you look at this, and you know what, Shai, you're going to be able to see him. He's going to be in Plymouth all the way until next week playing for Team USA. So, if you're into prospects, the Summer Showcase is the place to go. And the Red Wings have 6, 3 on Team USA. I don't know if it's the white or blue team. And then 2 on Sweden and 1 on Finland. I know Carly's looked at it. So, I mean, so there's going to be a lot of good hockey being played this week. Plus, we have free agency. So that's the next thing. Who are the Red Wings going to sign? Who are they bringing back from their own unrestricted free agents? We know they're going to qualify most of the restricted free agents. So it's only beginning. you think, oh my gosh, no, the draft's over. Let me pull up, put my feet up and have a cold one. Oh, I'm sorry. There's way too much going on for that to happen.
Absolutely. I know I asked Draper about the Plymouth Showcase, and he said he's super excited to watch the prospects that they drafted, but as well as watching those prospects that they weren't able to see that played overseas, that only a couple guys were able to watch them, especially the guys over in Sweden with Håkan Andersson. But he said he typically only goes in the States to scout players, but, he hasn't been able to watch a lot of these guys live, just with COVID and everything being shut down. So really exciting to watch some of these players go head to head. And also some of these players drafted today were out on the ice practicing with their teams when they got the draft call. I mean, talk about an outstanding week, right?
Right. Carter Meijer was one of them, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure they were trying to get hold of him. He was out on the ice wearing the old red, white, and blue.
Right. So speaking of Carter Meijer, let's focus on him a bit. So 19 years old, a little bit older. He was passed on the draft last year. He played for Kris Draper. How cool is that the guy you played for, your coach, now wants to draft you to his team? I mean, he's really been maturing in his game. He has offensive talent and a left winger, good scoring ability. He's a bit undersized, though. He's a little small, but you know what? Put some meat on him. He'll be strong on his feet in just a few years. And I know the Detroit Red Wings are so gung-ho about developing. So when do you think we can see Meijer in the red and white with a wing wheel on his sweater?
Well, yeah, what I find interesting, he's going to University of Denver, so he's going to be there with Shai and Tomisto. So, they're going to have a little Red Wing fan club going out there in Denver, which will not go well with the Avalanche fans, by the way. But with that said, what I really like about him, I like his attitude. He's born in Detroit, raised in the Jackson area. I talked to him earlier today. I said, well, you got a little edge. I mean, you got that Michigan edge going, with Cade Cunningham was talking about of all people too. And I'm looking at it, and he says, oh, yeah, you're right, I mean, so I think we've got a guy that's a complete good two-way player, has some offensive skill. He's very, very comfortable. I think that here's a guy that dreamt, the Red Wings posted on social media that picture that I think he was 8 or 10 or something, about his dream was to play in the NHL with the Detroit Red Wings, and boom, it comes true. So, I mean, I think you've got a guy, and a professional athlete is never comfortable. But I think he's comfortable in his own skin and at peace and really looking forward to this opportunity, because if you're from Michigan, I dreamt as a little kid playing for the Red Wings. Ken dreamt as a little kid playing for the Red Wings. He's actually living that dream. It doesn't get any better.
It really does.
The other thing about Carter Meijer is I had a little chuckle there because, when they asked him about who his favorite coach was, obviously he answered right by saying Kris Draper. But you know what I like about him, too, and I think it's great about the area that we live in, is that he's a Jackson native, born here in the state of Michigan. He played for the Little Caesars program, and they continue to put out solid hockey players. What a great program that's been for over the last, 100 years. I mean, it's been a great, great program. And the thing about Meijer is that he's put up some pretty good offensive numbers with Tri-City. And when he's playing with the Storm, he had 44 points in 47 games played. So that's almost a point per game player. I don't know how that's going to translate to the American League or to the National Hockey League, but that does tell me that he has the ability to put points on the board. And we all know that the Red Wings are looking for that diamond in the rough, somebody who can help out offensively.
That's for sure. And another guy we can look at as well, who's not a Michigander, because I know when you're in Michigan, you're always throwing on skates in the winter and skating out on the pond. But someone who didn't get that opportunity was Shai Buium, because he's from San Diego. So I asked him, I said, what got you involved, being in California, and how did you start with the game of hockey? And he said his cousin, who lived just down the street from him, he said he played hockey. And so Shai would go with his cousin to the rink like 6 a.m. every morning. He's like, I just fell in love with the game. So happy he did it. Clearly worked out for him. But when do you think we can see Shai? I know someone who's just not quite there yet, but maybe could be in the league in a couple of years down the line.
I don't know. I think what's interesting, and I'm going to use the example of Donovan Sabrango, who could not play for the Kitchener Rangers last year because the OHL didn't play. He went on a PTO, a professional tryout contract with Grand Rapids. And the thing was, as soon as the O opens back up, he leaves Grand Rapids and he goes back and plays for Kitchener. I know that many of Grand Rapids were hoping that he never left, that he didn't go back to Kitchener. But, that was the deal. That's the rules and all that. But what happened is that he didn't look out of place. And what did the Red Wings do? They signed him to a 3-year entry-level deal. And he's going to be in GR. That was a guy that not came out of nowhere, because he was a pretty high draft pick, 3rd or 4th round, if I off the top of my head. And could Shai be one of those guys? Yeah, he certainly could be. We're going to be talking about like Liam Downer Nilsson, the captain for the U18s for Team Sweden. I mean, this guy expects to make the Red Wings this year, but that's good. I like kids like that. It was kind of like Anthony Mantha at his development camp, which was still up in Traverse City. I said, well, when do you think you're going to make the Red Wings, or what's your timeline? He goes, this fall. I expect to make the team. And because when Anthony was drafted, there were still some pretty heavy hitters on the club, roster wise. And we were looking, and we're like, okay, well, I applaud your confidence, but buddy, you're dreaming. You're not making the Red Wings at 18 years old. But that's what I like. So some of these guys that we're talking about and that we're highlighting, they're going to come out of nowhere. They're going to be pleasant surprises. Other guys are just going to take a little bit longer.
For sure. All right, Art, I looked it up. Sabrango was a 3rd rounder. So looking at Shai Buyam, he's a 2nd rounder, early 2nd round. So doing some research on him, he's a big guy. He uses his body to his advantage. And so I asked him about that. I said, is that something that you think that can translate well into the league? He's like, yeah, I know, not only do I have a big body, but I know how to use it. So he's like, I'm a 2-way player. I'm good around the edges. And when I was doing, of course, my research on him, it says he has constant eye deception and has changes of pace and fake shots. So he's a little bit of a deeker out there. So you love to see it. Someone who plays a little bit with mentality of, okay, I'm going to fake him out. But that's something that could translate well onto the ice in the NHL. But Ken, as we keep going down the line, someone who I know I've been grazing Twitter, and everyone just loves this name for a Red Wing. It's Red Savage, centerman. And I know he's the son of a former NHL player. Do you think that plays to his advantage?
Well, I think so. As Kris Draper mentioned, that he was around locker rooms all throughout his childhood, and he knows what his dad went through when he was playing. He had some great years in the National Hockey League, his dad did. And so he understands, what a player needs to do regarding training and eating right and being a professional. And I think that says a lot, and it really helps you out, maybe gives you a little bit more of an edge when your dad has played in the National Hockey League than someone's dad who didn't. So, I hope it benefits him. But it seems like he's a really a high energy guy, just from some of the things that I've read and some of the videos that I've watched. The Red Wings do need a center iceman. I'm looking at the players here, the center iceman that the Red Wings drafted. I'm not so sure that they're going to be top center icemen. It can always happen. But what I do like is that they do play with a lot of energy. Savage is one of them. And the other one, that Dower Nilsson, very smart, terrific player. And if Håkan Andersson likes him, I like him too. So, Håkan picked up some gems in the past, so I trust his judgment. So, hopefully you cross your fingers and there'll be good, solid Red Wings in the years to come.
Carly, over the years, we've known so many Swedes, and they're very low maintenance and very calm and all that. So if a Swede's pounding his table, demanding something, I mean, that's about as animated as they're going to get. So when Håkan was doing that, I'm sure that perked up the room, everybody. I don't care if you're across an ocean or what, I mean, if he's in Europe pounding the table, trust me, Steve Yzerman and all those guys in the war room here in Detroit were saying, whoa, Håkan must really like this guy.
That's for sure. And as Draper said, he did love him and he's kept his eye on him for the past couple of years. He's from Frölunda. So when I asked Draper, I feel like you guys have been drafting a lot of prospects from Frölunda. Is that a coincidence? He said, yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but every time it seems like we like a player and then we see he's from Frölunda, we're like, well, here's another one. Come on, let's draft him.
Carly, that's like the Little Caesars program that I was talking about before, where Draper was talking about Frölunda and how from players from an early age on, they just get trained the right way. It's the same thing with the Little Caesars program here, in Michigan, where players come in and they teach them how to play and how to eat right and how to train. And, look at how many players have made it to the National Hockey League. Same thing in Sweden there with Frölunda. They just have a dynamic program.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the one thing I learned about Europe too, from Joe Valeno when he went over to Sweden, is that all these Swedish hockey league teams have their minor leagues are their own like junior club and then minor club. I mean, they bring these kids in at like 12 years old, and then they graduate to eventually, I guess the outcome would be to play for Frölunda in the SHL. But I mean, that's what it is. And over here in North America, we're a little bit different. Obviously, we have Little Caesars, eventually maybe college or junior teams in Canada. But in Europe, if you're a good hockey player, like, when Kenny Cal was tearing it up, at 12 years old, if he was in Sweden, Frölunda would have came and plucked him. And, before you know it, that's what he would have been a Jayhawk or whatever they're called over there in Frölunda, whatever their nickname is. But that's how they do it. And it is and that is a system. I mean, and Mo Sider was talking about that. Mannheim was the same way. I mean, they get them at a young age, and they start to groom them to be, professional hockey players. It's and Frölunda's got it down to, they're probably one of the best, I would say, professional clubs in Europe as far as scouting and training and evaluating talent, and then obviously evolving this talent into professional hockey players.
That's exactly what they're doing. I mean, when a storied franchise like the Detroit Red Wings has their eye on your program, you're doing something right, especially when it's Steve Yzerman and Kris Draper who are keeping their eyes on you. I want to move on to the next draft pick that we had in the 5th round at 155. Oscar Plandowski. A fun fact about Plandowski: his mom, Jill Plandowski, is a renowned power skating coach in the Halifax area. So she's worked with a lot of local QMJHL and NCAA prospects, including none other than Jared McIsaac. So fun fact there, they have a little bit of a connection that Oscar Plandowski's mom was skating, helping Jared McIsaac with his skating. So of course, when your mom is a power skating coach, your skating better be top tier. And that is one of the very interesting things about Plandowski. Not even interesting. That's not the right word I'm trying to use. Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. It's one of the, what I'm trying to say, you guys.
Attributes. It's one of his attributes. He's a really good skater thanks to his mom.
Best attribute. Thank you. There we go. So it's one of his best attributes. He even said, like, out of his mouth, said, my skating is one of my best abilities. So obviously, when your mom is probably skating you from the moment you can put on skates and get out on the ice, skating has to be your forte. But another defenseman from, like I said, the QMJHL, Ken, what do you think he can bring to this team when he has speed and he has great skating skills as a defenseman? Is that something that the Detroit Red Wings need down the pipeline?
Well, if you can't skate, you can't play in the National Hockey League. Maybe back 25 years ago, you could get away with it. If you were a hard hitting guy, they put you on defense and you can run guys through the wall. But in today's game, it's so fast that you really have to be a great skater. And it only helps, like you said, Carly, when your mom's a skating coach and she skates you, 2, 3, 4 hours a day and make sure that you can play one day in the National Hockey League. But it also helps when Steve Yzerman knew his father, who was a part of the Tampa Bay organization. And, that only helps you as a general manager. When you have all these connections and you can go out, we talked about, Redmond Savage, about, how his dad played in the National Hockey League, and Steve knows Plandowski and his kid's coming up and he watches them ever since he was a kid. It just helps you when he's draft eligible to really make a decision, because in the back of your mind, you've got 4 or 5 years perhaps to watch this kid grow right in front of your eyes. And then if you like him and you like things that you think he can bring to your table, obviously you draft him. So those are some of the things that are intangibles that really help general managers. And it's going to help Oscar Plandowski. And again, he's a right-handed shooting defenseman. And the Red Wings have a plethora of right-handed shooting defensemen. But down the road, it just gives you depth. And one of the things I heard regarding the Detroit Tigers, just using this, is that they have to build their farm system, and they're in that process now of getting depth and building the farm system. The same thing here in Detroit. You've got to start building your system up so that when guys come and go or a guy gets hurt, someone has to come in and not only just fill a spot, but they have to produce and compete. So that's what the Red Wings are in right now. They're getting all this young talent. And it's going to be great for our friends in Grand Rapids, because down the road, they're going to see all these young players that one day will be Detroit Red Wings. And that's something that they haven't been able to see in Grand Rapids over the last several years.
Sure. And
it's the next man up. I'm sorry. I was going to say it's the next man up mentality that you see in elite level programs. The elite level programs, when a guy goes down, next man up comes in. And unfortunately, it was pretty thin here in Detroit for a while because, obviously they were competing for Stanley Cups and they trade a lot of assets away, draft picks and all that. Well, now they've accumulated them, and Ken's absolutely right. You're going to see Grand Rapids is going to be loaded. I mean, Grand Rapids is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year, and I go down there. I know everyone's talking about going to see Michigan play this year, and and granted, I guess it is a pro team, but with that said, I mean, GR is going to have a lot of high end prospects. I mean, I think Berggren probably has a better shot at making the team out of camp than Raymond does, just because of Raymond's elbow injury. It might take him a little bit longer, depending on where he's at. But Lucas Raymond's going to probably be at some point in Detroit next year. And then we're going to be talking about the old 9 games. Is he going to play only 9 games? Are they going to play him over 9 games? If he hits 10, that blows the first year of his entry-level deal. That's why Zadina was exempt this year from the expansion draft. But I don't think the league's expanding anytime soon. But, so there's a lot of questions and a lot of things to be answered. But I think the expectation level in Steve Yzerman's mind, and Kenny pointed it out, and I couldn't, again, agree more, is that he expects this team to take a notch up, to take a step up. Does that mean they're a playoff team? Maybe not a playoff team, definitive playoff team, but maybe right there on the cusp where they'll be competing. They'll be playing a lot of fun hockey here in March and April this year.
For sure.
Or this next season.
Last fun fact about Oscar is that he was a forward and he shifted from forward to defenseman just a few years ago. So talk about a two-way player, an offensive-minded defenseman, And last but not least, in the 6th round at 166, the Detroit Red Wings picked Pasquale Zito, left winger from the OHL, the Windsor Spitfires. He didn't play last season, though, so they're kind of taking a gamble on him. Ken, is this something when a player takes a full year off of hockey, can you look at his prior years and kind of have a good idea of what player he is? Or do you think a player develops that much in a year that it's kind of hard to tell?
Carly, I think that's a hard question because, when you're a hockey player, you want to continue to play each and every year. And when you take a year off, it can't help you out. I mean, you can skate on your own and you can do all these things by yourself, work out, but it's nothing like game experience. But these kids are competitive and they're going to get in shape. As Kris Draper said, they're not out playing video games. At least I hope they're not playing video games. They're out there working their tail off to try and be a good, solid pro one day. But, you look at his numbers when he did play, he had 13 points in 46 games for Windsor. Seems like he's a hardworking guy. He's a left winger that I think can play the center ice position too. 6 foot, 175 pounds. And again, these are shots in the dark. You get down to the 7th, 8th pick, and, not everyone's going to make it in the National Hockey League, obviously. But, again, you're still looking for hope, and you're still looking for those diamonds in the rough that's maybe some guy will come up here, and really by the time he's 21 or 22 years old, he will develop, he'll build into his body, and maybe he's got some skills or some type of skill that will help your club in some area, whether it's power play, penalty kill, or playing – on a 4th line check-in line, or just doing whatever you have to do to make the team.
For sure. And Art Draper mentioned some names that were drafted later on in the draft in some of the last rounds, notably Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg were drafted in about the middle of the draft. So when you're looking at some of the names that the Detroit Red Wings picked, are you seeing some players that could be, as Ken was just saying, diamonds in the rough?
Well, Zito's an interesting case because I think what happened with him, with Pasquale, was he didn't play. Everyone thought the O was eventually going to start, right? It was everyone, okay, when's it going to start? And it just never did. But I think it's what he did with his time. And his gym was open, so he worked out, and that's something that Joe Veleno did too last year. He didn't go play hockey right away. He went to Sweden relatively late in the year and began to play. He worked on his body. He worked on his strength. Veleno, and I think, Ken, you saw it when he came back from Sweden. he looked different in his Red Wing uniform than he did when he, and obviously, okay, they're growing. He's 18 when we first see him, but you could tell that it paid off. And I think that that's part of the test too. I'm sure in the room that when they were talking about should we draft him, he hasn't played, since March of 2020. He hasn't played a competitive game, but it's what he did. What did he do? He wasn't, as Steve likes to say, he wasn't on the couch eating bonbons, and watching TV. This kid was out there working out and doing, working on his body. He did everything he could do and did some pickup games that he could do to get better and build his body up to be ready when he started to play. And I think that went a long way. I think that, so there were some guys out there, and who was it? Was it Draper yesterday that said, honestly, we would talk to some of these kids and then we saw them again over the pandemic and they had put on and boy, I can really identify with this. They put on 35 pounds. You know what I mean? And we're thinking, whoa, what did you do? And they didn't do nothing. They didn't do very much anything but, sit on the couch and eat bonbons. Pasquale was not one of those kids. Zito was not one of those kids. So I think in a way, and especially as Ken said, in the 6th round, is willing to take a flyer on somebody like that. And, and I love what he said, during his Zoom call. He plays for the Spitfires, and he would go over and look at the Ambassador Bridge and stare at Detroit and think about how cool it would be to play for a Red Wing. Well, now he has an opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, down the pipeline, we have a lot of promising prospects. So really excited to see what will happen. I know we were all talking about the prospects tournament and being able to just see those prospects, not just the prospects tournament, but as we were also saying, the Puma Showcase. So awesome time to be a Detroit Red Wings fan right now. A lot of promising prospects, as I said, but I do want to thank you guys so much. I always learn so much from Ken and Art. It's been fantastic being able to cover the draft with you guys. So thank you once again.
Well, it's only starting right now, pleasure. Carly and Art, and we're looking forward to the training camp and everything else.
I think we just got the king.
Time to say goodbye. I think the crew's saying, "Okay, shut up. We're going. We're leaving. We're leaving. It's over. It's done. Yeah, it's done. It's time to eat bonbons on the couch."
All right. Well, I know these gentlemen want to drink a couple ginger ales to cap off the draft, but we do want to thank you guys for watching our streams. We do want to thank Meijer for bringing you all of the draft coverage for the 2021 Detroit Red Wings Draft Days party. So, Ken, thank you guys so much, and let's go Red Wings.